Thanks for tuning in to another episode of From Funding to Fame, where we interview the founders and funders currently raising capital on FrontFundr, as well as experts in the private capital markets. I'm your host, Trieste Redding, the head of campaigns at FrontFundr, and I'm excited to introduce more Canadians to equity crowdfunding. This podcast episode features conversations about a business's current operations and future plans, and as a result may contain forward-looking information. There can be no assurance that forward-looking information will prove to be accurate, as actual results and future events could differ materially from those anticipated in such statements. Listeners should not place undue reliance on forward-looking information. Today we're here with the CEO of the Fort Distillery, Nathan Flim. The Fort Distillery is a family-owned company that produces award-winning cocktails and spirits. With a focus on quality products, aesthetic branding, and efficient production, they've grown to become one of the largest distilleries in Alberta. Since launching in 2018, the Fort Distillery is on a mission to bring consumers delicious, small-batch spirits with a twist. Here are some highlights. They've successfully expanded across Western Canada and into 12 US states. They have major contracts with Porter Airlines and the Edmonton Oilers. And they're the recipients of the 2024 Canadian Artisan Spirit of the Year Award, and they won double gold at the San Francisco International Spirit Awards. Hi, Nathan. Thanks so much for being here today. Welcome to From Funding to Fame. We're excited to have you.
Awesome. Yeah, excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So as we kick things off today, we'd just love to learn a little bit more about yourself and kind of what the journey through your career has looked like so far, as you've kind of launched Fort Distillery.
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I opened the distillery in September of 2018. My background is actually in chemistry. So went to school, got a chemistry degree, but always knew I wanted to do something in business. Just always, kind of had that interest and business sense. And so I was reading an article in a chemistry magazine about a bunch of chemists who opened a distillery. And I thought, hey, I'm a chemist. I like spirits. And so it seemed like a pretty good idea. So I traveled around, visited some other distilleries here in Alberta, met with some owners, and everybody had some, great things to say about the industry. So yeah, we opened the doors here. We're in Fort Saskatchewan, which is a small city just outside of Edmonton, Alberta. So we opened our doors in 2018. We started by producing vodka and gin and a couple of different liqueurs. And we also had a cocktail lounge at that point, which we closed during COVID, but we had a cocktail lounge then as well. And then in 2020 is when we launched Tumbler and Rocks cocktails. And that has quickly become our largest brand. So the idea behind Tumbler and Rocks is they are ready to serve spirit forward cocktails. So like a bottled old fashioned Cosmo, you just pour over ice and you're ready to go. So that's become our largest brand. We use a ton of local ingredients in those cocktails and distribute them now across Western Canada and quite a bit in the US, which is where our main focus is at this point. And then we also have a whiskey brand called Mountain Pass Whiskey. So it's a Canadian whiskey, and those are our two brands that we really focus on quite a bit now. Our cocktail lounge is now closed. We now focus more on distribution and sales to liquor stores and to distributors.
A really interesting background there, coming from a chemistry background into being an entrepreneur. How did you find that transition between kind of those two different career paths there?
Yeah, I mean the chemistry definitely helped me understand the theory behind distillation. It wasn't really anything close to what I had done in the lab, going from distilling, 50 milliliters of some compound to distilling 600 liters of whiskey, totally different worlds. But at least I had the, kind of the theoretical knowledge of how distillation works, the analytical background to it as well. And just the ability to tackle problems, has come in very helpful over the years for sure.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned as well that you started with a couple products, and then I think it was 2020 you said kind of switched into that ready to drink cocktail format. So I guess as you were going through that growth period, what was kind of that determining factor where you said, hey, this ready to drink category, kind of we want to move into that. That's what customers want to see. What was that kind of inflection point like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So our vodka and gin were doing well, in the Edmonton region in Alberta, but they were never going to be a high volume product, right? Even if our gin is your favorite gin, it could sit on your shelf for 6 months or a year, right? And there's also a ton of competition, right? Almost every craft distillery that opens, starts with a vodka and the gin, right? That's kind of the playbook, right? So I knew I wanted to get into something that had a higher volume. So we were looking initially at the ready to drink space, which would be canned cocktails, right? Hard seltzers like White Claw, Nude, Neutral, that kind of thing. And that space was just so crowded. Even back in 2020, it was already booming, hundreds of different brands in the canned cocktail space. But doing our research, didn't really see anything in the spirit forward, like bottled cocktail space. There was basically one big company in the US and then a couple small companies, doing bottled old fashions, but that was about it. We already had a bottling line, we already have spirits. Classic cocktails are what I enjoy. So it really all just kind of clicked. It was a category that did not have nearly the competition of canned cocktails, and it solves a problem, right? Um, when I would go home from work, I love cocktails, but I would often have a beer, right? Because I'm tired and I don't want to, mix a cocktail or I don't have all the ingredients. Whereas when it's ready to serve, it's just great. It's ready to go. You just pour it over ice, right? So it's a lot easier to sell something that solves a problem versus just saying, hey, you should switch from your current vodka to my vodka, right? Now we can say, hey, you want to enjoy cocktails at home. It's hard. You don't know the recipes. You don't have the ingredients. Here's the answer to your problem, right? And so that was sort of when things clicked for me, was that, hey, this is a brand that actually solves a problem, and isn't just an alternative to something you're already drinking, right? So that's kind of when we knew we had something. And yeah, basically switched, kind of on that day. We were like, all right, we're going to do these cocktails, and went through a lot of iterations in branding and flavors and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a great journey, and has helped us grow a lot.
No, that's great. I think, yeah, you really did identify kind of a need in the market where there aren't currently a lot of players. I know for myself as well, not a huge fan of drinking beer and wine, just
Mm-hmm.
not ideal for me. I'm also now celiac, so gluten within
Mm-hmm.
beer is not
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But I love a good cocktail, good martini, and I often don't make it at home. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice to have those ready to serve options. And yeah, I think as you mentioned, kind of on the campaign page, you're really looking to allow consumers to enjoy quality craft cocktails at home without the
Mm-hmm.
mess and without the work, which is
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
I know you talk about too how you're offering high quality pre-made cocktails that are easy to serve. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about kind of, I know you talked about the two product lines, some of the flavors that you're currently offering.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd also like to learn a little bit more about the branding too. I think your products look great. It's obviously got the nice glass bottle packaging.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can touch on too why kind of the brand or how that became such an important element of what you guys are
Mm-hmm.
doing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we had the idea for Tumbler and Rocks cocktails, that's actually when we brought our first investor into the company, because that was when, I knew, hey, this is a good idea. This really has a chance. And so we brought on an investor, brought some cash into the company so that we could really focus on that marketing. And so we had already kind of done up some branding on our own, just like some mock-ups. And then we were like, okay, this is a good idea. People seemed really interested. So we hired a marketing company to help us with the branding. The glass bottles is really important to us, right? We're selling a high quality cocktail, and so it just doesn't feel right in plastic. There's a couple other brands out there that do ready to serve cocktails, and they're single serving as a plastic bottle, and that's not what people want, right? Glass feels better in your hand. Our bottle is quite unique versus the competitors. A lot of the competitors are also doing cans, like small 100 ml cans, and again, it just doesn't feel as high end as a nice glass bottle, right? We use black labels, which kind of has that premium feel to it. So um, the cocktails taste great. We use a lot of local ingredients, really high quality stuff. But if somebody doesn't pick it up off the shelf, it really doesn't matter, right? How good it tastes. So you really have to win on shelf first, right? You have to have both. You have to have a good looking bottle that somebody's going to actually pick up and buy. And then you have to have obviously the great tasting cocktail that comes with that so that they buy it again, right? And so we made sure right when we launched the brand that we really put a strong focus on the branding, how the bottle looks, how it feels. And yeah, we take a lot of pride in what the bottle looks like, what the brand looks like, what it feels like. And in Mountain Pass whiskey as well, right? That's a unique label. Our premium series has a cool, 3-piece label. But that's really how you differentiate yourself on the shelf, right? Is it's got to look good. People shop with their eyes. So yeah, it's been definitely a focus for us, the high quality branding and marketing behind the brands.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I know for myself as a consumer, I definitely shop based on aesthetics.
Yeah,
Don't know too much about kind of, the beer and wine space or cocktails in general, but if it looks good and it comes in great packaging, I'm definitely willing to give it a
yeah,
try. So
totally.
I think it makes sense, and I think you outline on the campaign page as well that really kind of uh, 90% of your business is kind of through liquor stores or distributors and things like that, where
Mhm.
shelf space is definitely important. So I can
Yeah.
see how that really helps differentiate you in the space,
Yeah,
which is critical.
totally. Yeah, and we focus a lot, especially when launching in new states, on, we'll bring point of sale material, so counter displays, floor displays, stuff like that as well to really help our product stand out for sure.
Absolutely. And I know you touched on too just kind of how saturated the canned ready to drink category is, but ready to
Mhm.
drink itself, I think, is still growing, still a lot of demand there. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what the market opportunity is for a higher end kind of glass
Mhm.
bottled cocktail within this ready to serve space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the spirit forward RTD, RTS space has been the fastest growing category in the liquor market for the last number of years. The trend really these days is to drink less but drink better, right? So people are moving away from buying the 24 pack of cheap beer, and they're moving more towards buying higher end cocktails. And so the space has been growing very quickly. And then another thing that's happening is a move towards premiumization, right? So people
Mhm.
are wanting that good quality cocktail. They want to know where the ingredients come from. They want to know that it's real ingredients. And so yeah, that spirit-based cocktail space has been growing very quickly. And there's more competition now than when we started, but still most of it is just kind of the big guys who maybe have a bottled old fashioned in Manhattan, don't really use any unique ingredients. And so we've been able to find a niche there where we talk about our real ingredients. We also talk about the fact that we're from Canada. We're, one of the only ready to serve producers in Canada. And so we use some of those unique ingredients that we have here. Canada also has a really good reputation for high quality, and so when people see that kind of Canadian made, that matters to them. So that's what we've been able to differentiate a little bit on the shelf. And then another thing we've done is we've launched a variety pack this year. So nobody else was doing a variety pack in the ready to serve space. There's been tons of variety packs in beer and in canned cocktails, but nobody was really doing it in this space. And so we launched a variety pack at the beginning of the year, which has been doing really great. Consumers love that, right? They love to be able to try a couple different cocktails in one easy package. So that's been going really well since launch as well.
Oh, that's amazing. I think variety pack sounds great. Perfect for having people over. You got some different flavors to try and stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a great strategy there. I know since kind of being founded in 2018, you've grown to become one of the largest distilleries in Alberta, which is great. Would love to learn a little bit more about kind of the business model. You do mention
Mm-hmm.
on the campaign page kind of that 90%, 10% split between kind of working through wholesalers, liquor stores, distributors versus direct to consumer, and how Fort Distillery makes money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when we started, it was definitely, a lot of our business just came in through the front door, right? We had a cocktail lounge. People came in and bought bottles. We were at farmers markets. Now, as we've grown, that model just isn't as scalable, right? You're just never going to be able to grow as large if you're relying on foot traffic. And so as we've started to get into more liquor stores and into the US, definitely the focus now is on distribution versus direct to consumer. So we still do a bit of direct to consumer here in Alberta through farmers markets, and we do have a tasting room here at the distillery. But the way that our business works, I'll focus on the US is basically it's a 3-tier system, is what it's called. So there's the supplier, which is us, then there's the distributor, and then there's the retailer. So I can't sell directly to the retailer legally. I have to go through a distributor. So we sign distributors in different states, and then we would ship pallets of finished goods to them. And then from there, they sell it out to the retailers. And so that's basically how our business works. Here in Alberta, we can sell directly to retailers as well as in British Columbia, well, through the government, but to retailers. And then in the States, we work with distributors.
Okay, appreciate you providing a bit more of an overview there. I know traditionally we've heard from so many companies just how challenging it can be kind of shipping things across Canada as well, and
Mhm.
distributing in the US often is a market that people go to. So it's great to hear how you guys are growing and expanding. I know as well you have some pretty incredible partnerships that you've worked on over
Mhm.
the years with the Edmonton Oilers, Porter Air, Fairmont, and you've also won some great awards with the
Mhm.
product. So would love to hear more about kind of some traction that the company's had to date, how you went about securing some of those partnerships, and what some of the continued growth plans are for the
Mhm.
future.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, yeah, a couple of our cool big contracts. Number one being the Porter Airlines. So, Porter is an airline based out of Toronto. They've been growing over the last couple of years. They purchased a large number of jets, and so they're flying across Canada now and into the U.S. So, we are the exclusive cocktail supplier to Porter Airlines. So, our cocktails are available on all of their long haul flights across Canada and the U.S. We work with a number of Fairmont hotels here in Alberta and in British Columbia. Some of them purchase our cocktails directly, and then for some of them, we've created a custom white label product for them. For the last 2 years, we were partnered with the Edmonton Oilers with our whiskey and our cocktails being available in Rogers Place. And then, yeah, some of the awards, we've submitted our cocktails and our whiskeys to a number of awards over the years, have won some great awards. The one I'd like to highlight would be our Mountain Pass whiskey actually just won the Canadian Artisan Spirit of the Year award at the Canadian Artisan Spirits competition this year. So it was that's the highest honor in the whole awards, basically the number one product. So that was really, really cool and really, really great to see. And then, yeah, as we continue, because Tumbler and Rock serves a unique need, there's other large contracts that we're going to keep tackling. So, more airlines, more resorts and hotels, cruise ships is another one that we kind of have on the list of things to tackle. So there's a lot of kind of unique large deals that can be made and that we're pursuing.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on the award there. That's pretty
Yeah,
fantastic as
thank you.
well. I guess in addition to pursuing those new contracts, are there plans for new products perhaps on the horizon as well?
Yeah, so in terms of new products, we want to be careful where we don't get stuck in the trend of launching a new cocktail every 2 months,
Yeah.
right? That's a trap that a lot of distilleries and breweries fall into, is just, oh, what's the next thing? What's the next thing, right? So we do want to avoid that. So our core lineup, the plan is that it remains the same. But then we are launching what we're calling our Canadian series. As I mentioned before, right, our focus on Canada and our location here is unique. And so we're launching a series where we're going to highlight some unique Canadian ingredients. So this summer here in Alberta, we launched a blueberry margarita. And so that was our summer cocktail. And then last fall, so 2023, we launched a maple bourbon smash here in Alberta. It did really well. And so we're relaunching that again this Christmas season, and we're going to be sending it to the US. So right now there's about 5 states already that are on board for that. And then we'll be relaunching it here in Alberta as well. So that's how we're planning to do things, is, instead of launching new cocktails, constantly thinking of ways that actually add value to the market, right? So people are interested to try Canadian ingredients. Therefore, we're launching the Canadian line to bring some unique ingredients to our consumers.
Wow, those both sound great. Definitely
Mm-hmm.
would be eager to try them there. That sounds fantastic. Looking a little bit kind of at your role within the company and your leadership. Obviously, coming from a chemistry background to an entrepreneur is really unique. A really interesting story there.
Mm-hmm.
So, would love to hear more about your philosophy on kind of leadership and how you inspire and motivate the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something that's been super important to me over the last number of years, especially since we started growing quite a bit, has been mentorship. So, um, yeah, I didn't grow up with parents owning businesses or anything like that. My dad had a small company for a while, but it wasn't a big part of the family. And so I often, especially when we started growing quite quickly, I often felt a little bit lost and didn't know, where to turn, what to do. And so I've made sure to surround myself with really great mentors. I'm a member of VMSA, which is Venture Mentorship Services of Alberta. It's a great organization. So every 4 to 6 weeks, I meet with a mentorship group in Calgary, and it's 3 mentors who are just there to support me and be my mentors, and that's been huge for me for sure. I also did the EO, which is the entrepreneur organization. I did their accelerator program as well. But yeah, recognizing that you know being a leader is extremely important, and knowing how to do it well is extremely important for the health of the organization. So that's been a bit of my philosophy on leadership, is making sure I'm surrounded by other great leaders who can mentor me.
It's amazing. I think it's mentorship is such an important aspect of really anyone's kind of role who wants to really grow
Mhm.
and develop in their career. And I think a lot of times people don't know where to go to
Yeah.
find a mentor as well. So maybe you can touch on a little bit how you got involved with that organization. That seems great that there's kind of a path where entrepreneurs can go to find that mentorship.
Yeah, what actually happened there was ATB, like the bank, one of the banks here in Alberta had a program called ATBX, I think it was called, and it was basically an accelerator for young entrepreneurs or new entrepreneurs, and so I went through that program, and during one of the sessions, they had VMSA come and talk about what they do, and so that's where I heard about it, and it sounded like a really great program, and so that's how I got involved. I believe that it's a model that is across Canada. I know in Edmonton and Calgary there's a VMSA group, and I believe it's across Canada. But yeah, that's how I found it. Is looking for business accelerators, business courses. The government or banks put on a lot of great programs. Another one that I've done is the Trade Accelerator program. I've taken that course as well, which has helped with our export planning. But yeah, that's how I went about finding it. And then the EO Accelerator was really good as well. There was a lot of good learnings that I did when I took that.
Oh, it's amazing. I appreciate you sharing some more insight there. I'll have
Mhm.
to look that up, and I think that's just a great resource for so
Yeah,
many people who are taking that next step in the entrepreneurial journey for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
One thing I always like to just ask founders is if there's been kind of a defining moment in your journey where kind of everything seemed to take a turn for the business, or if you have kind of a favorite moment that really stands out in your mind over the last few years of since you've really launched the Fort Distillery.
Um, I think there's been a couple. One thing I do remember is the first time, back in 2018 that we sold to a liquor store and I was able to see our product on a liquor store shelf. That was really cool. To see months of planning and work all coming together and being something that people can buy. And I remember getting the first reorder from that store and I was like, oh my goodness, like people have been buying our vodka. I think it was vodka at the time. People have been buying our vodka, right? And so that was really cool, and what it really got me excited about consumer goods, right? Because you're making something for people to enjoy, and they're buying it, and yeah, it's kind of really cool to just see that. Another one was signing the Porter deal. That was really awesome, to just be a distillery here in Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta, and then to get a contract with an airline that flies across Canada and into the US. That was a really great kind of defining moment to say, hey, like this is possible, and um, you know, yeah, that was a pretty cool defining moment for sure.
No, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing more about that. Another question I always like to ask entrepreneurs is we know how just crazy life can be running a business. It really requires you to wear multiple hats and kind of be on the clock all the time. So when you're not working, is there something that you like
Mhm.
to do to kind of decompress and
Mhm.
regroup from
Yeah,
kind of the
totally.
the day to day of the business?
Yeah, I mean, I have three kids under four, so there's not
Wow.
there's not there's not a ton of rest even at home. But when if I can get away and do some fishing or hunting, those are times that I'm able to decompress a little bit. And then something else that I found important in just this journey is just taking time to just sit and relax. I know in EO I can't remember the wording, but it was like a clarity moment, I think, where it's just like, hey, I'm just gonna sit outside by the fire or sit at a cafe without your computer, turn off your phone and maybe just have a notebook and just sort of think about things. And that's been really important. And that's when a lot of my good ideas come. Often I'm tempted to just pull out the laptop and hammer out some emails, but I try to set aside at least one evening a week where I don't work I usually, my schedule's a little bit wonky, but I usually work in the evenings just because of the kids. And so, but I try to set aside at least one evening where I don't pull out the laptop and I just, kind of sit there and think. And that's, yeah, when a lot of good ideas come and just kind of rests the mind a little bit as well.
Yeah, taking a moment to kind of reflect can be so important.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think, like you said, I often hear from a lot of entrepreneurs that getting back to nature is really what
Yeah.
allows them to kind of, yeah, decompress, regroup, get reinvigorated for kind of the week ahead. And yeah, it sounds like fishing, hunting, great ways to do that as well.
Yeah, there's often no cell service anyways, so you can't
Very
do
good
too much.
point.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
forced
forced turn
break.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. I guess switching things a little bit to the capital raise.
Hmm.
I know you mentioned that kind of the business took a bit of a shift there when bringing on your first investor, kind of in the RTD category. So would love to hear a little bit about what your experience has been raising capital so far, and then also why you decided to pursue equity crowdfunding as a funding method where you can kind of welcome your community to
Yeah,
invest as well. So would like to hear a little
totally.
bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we've been raising money basically since we launched Tumbler and Rocks. Growing a new brand, especially in a different country, is very expensive on those first initial months and years, right? There's a lot of marketing that we have to do, a lot of travel, before it kind of starts to pay dividends. So over the last couple of years, we've raised capital mainly through connections, friends, family, some who aren't necessarily, like super tight, but, kind of those connections that we know or have done business with before. So that's how we've raised capital over the years and used that for marketing and for purchasing equipment and stuff like that. Um, we're really excited about the crowdfunding this year because it's just, I had seen it before. I'd seen other distilleries do it, and we're too busy or whatever to look into it. But what I really like about it is that it is the community, right? Like there's going to be the people who have already invested in us already knew us, right? Now we're going to
Yeah.
be kind of building a new community of investors and people who are invested in the distillery and might have great ideas for the company, or are now going to be new customers of the distillery, right? And so I'm really excited about that aspect of this capital raise, is that we're able to go to people, and also not everybody has $200,000 to invest, right? And so the crowdfunding allows us to access investors with retail amounts to invest, right? Previously, it wouldn't be worth the paperwork necessarily to welcome smaller investors, because there's a lot of legal stuff that goes on behind the scenes, right? So with FrontFundr, all of that is done and taken care of, and we can kind of welcome anybody, and so that's a really cool part of it for us.
No, that's great. I think, like you said, it's really a great way to kind of have that community of existing customers come on board as
Hmm.
investors and kind of share in the growth journey, which is exciting. It's a cool way to unite local communities as
Yeah.
well. And also to, as you said, find new investors who maybe they're not local to the area, but they're
Yeah,
really interested in what you're doing.
totally.
They invest and they become customers. So
Yeah.
it's a really great opportunity to kind of support business growth and brand awareness there as well. And as you said, it's accessible to a lot more people. I think we've got a $500 minimum on the campaign page, which
Yeah.
is great. And also, not to be understated, there are some very exciting perks on the campaign page as well for
Hmm.
investors, which I always think is kind of fun when you've got a great product-based business. And not only do you get to invest in the company and get equity, but you also get some nice perks out of it
Yeah,
too. It's a lot of
absolutely.
fun for investors.
Yeah, that was one of
One
the cool
thing,
parts for us as well, putting together those perks, right? Because we're a product-based business, so we can,
yeah,
yeah, we can also offer some cool perks.
no, it's great. There's some fantastic tiers there. And, for those investors who do invest a little bit more, I think the signed owner's whiskey that you have is pretty
Yeah.
cool too. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of cool variations there.
absolutely.
Um, One thing I wanted to ask as well is just for the raise, what some of the objectives are in terms of
Hmm.
the use of funds and kind of how
Yep.
the capital will be put to work for the business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, I would say the main use of funds is going to be sales and marketing. So, one of the cool things about where we're at right now is that we, have a fully automated bottling line. We have a great facility, so we don't need to invest heavily into a new facility or new equipment. That's already there. So the capacity, we have a lot of capacity for growth in our current facility and with our current equipment. So we can really take this capital raise and invest it into sales and marketing, building our distribution in the U.S., hiring salespeople in the U.S. to really help us grow. That's kind of the next phase of the journey, right? We've launched in a lot of new states this year, and so the main focus of the capital raise will be to support those states in marketing and sales, and then purchase higher levels of inventory as well, so that we can make sure that we're keeping up with orders. Especially the timing is good. We're coming into our busiest time of the year. Right before Christmas, Thanksgiving and Christmas is our busiest time of the year by far. And so this capital raise, I believe, closes at the end of September. And so the timing is good to support our busiest season.
That's fantastic. I think the campaign page as well does a really good job kind of highlighting the expansion that you guys have had so far
Mm-hmm.
this year and where current plans are. I think you mentioned you launched in New York in 2024. You've launched in Rhode Island and other areas, and then you've got some new planned expansion as well. So maybe you can touch on a little bit about where the focus is or what the
Mm-hmm.
strategy is in
Yep.
terms of expansion.
Yeah, this year has really been when the snowball has kind of started to roll in the US, right? So our initial foray into the US was just kind of in the middle of COVID, the end of COVID, and we learned a ton of lessons. It was really tough because we couldn't travel to the US, but we were able to learn, what kind of distributor do we want to sign with? How does this work? What do they need in terms of support? And so really the last 12 months, has been huge for us. We've launched almost in a state per month this year. We have Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, Michigan, Georgia, Nebraska. I was just in Colorado last week for our launch there, and then we're launching in Arizona in September. So I think it's like 9 states we've brought on this year already, and then there was a couple at the end of 2023 as well. So we've really, kind of figured out what we're looking for in a distributor, how to sign a distributor, how to launch in a market. And so now we're able to take that and really select which markets we want to go into. And so we're doing it a little bit geographically, right? We've got some up in the Northeast, the Midwest, and then, Georgia, Nebraska, Colorado. So we're starting to expand south a little bit as well. But it often makes sense to launch in states that are close geographically, just for the sake of travel, and stuff like that as well.
Well, congratulations on the expansion so far
Yeah,
this
thank
year.
you.
Those are really,
Yeah.
really impressive numbers. And it seems like it's just going to continue going. And the fact that, use of funds going to be going towards more of that growth is
Mm-hmm.
really nice to see. As we look to kind of wind things down today, I know you've actually already kind of provided some great advice for future entrepreneurs throughout this episode, but I always like to ask if there's kind of been a quote or piece of advice that you've received that's followed you on this entrepreneurial journey so far that would be great to share with future entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of things. One of the things that's really been influencing me recently is narrowing my focus. So, it's easy as an entrepreneur to be kind of pulled in all kinds of different directions, and I've been reading a lot, and it's been helping me recently just to try to focus on one thing at a time, right? When your focus is split all over the place, it's just hard to really get anything done. And so I've been time blocking my calendar. Something I found really helpful through my journey is closing my emails, turning off the phone if I have a big task, where I need to really focus on something. Is just focus on that one thing instead of kind of being all over the place. So that's something that I found really helpful throughout this journey is narrowing that focus. Thinking like, what's the one thing that I can do today that's going to advance the business, advance our goals, and that's been really beneficial.
No, that's great. I think very helpful advice for any entrepreneur, just because you have so many hats to wear all the time. It's
Mm-hmm.
kind of, where do you put that focus? How do you not get pulled in too many different directions at a
Yeah,
time? But also, I think really just valuable for anyone in their career or leadership positions as well, because there's always so many competing priorities, and really
yeah,
just giving yourself that opportunity to focus on one thing, get it done, and move on. I
yeah,
think a lot of people think multitasking can be useful and is helpful, but it's a struggle for a lot of people. Sometimes it's really just zeroing in on a task, getting it done, and moving on to the next one too.
yeah. And one of the things I learned, it takes quite a while to build that focus, right? If you start working on a task, it's not like you're boom in it, right? It takes a
Yeah.
little while, and so then if you stop halfway through and go answer a couple emails and then come back to it, you kind of lose that, right? And so that's where I found the time blocking to be really helpful, where it's like, hey, this hour I'm just working on this, the emails are closed, the phone is off. And then after that, and then, you make sure you obviously have some time in there for the admin and emails and stuff like that. But that's been quite helpful for sure.
Well, that's great advice. I even find with my day sometimes, you might have several calls scheduled back to back, but maybe there's like a 15-minute or half an hour gap in between, and that's not always enough time to get started on really a new task. So sometimes I like to really kind of block the morning, get as many meetings done, and then really leave the afternoon open for more of those solid work periods, which just seems to enable you to kind of get switched on a little bit more and more tackled within that time frame as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Last question I wanted to ask for today, just as we're wrapping up, if you could leave investors with 3 things to take away about your company, what would it be?
Yeah, so 3 things about the company. We're in a very quickly growing space. Like we mentioned before, the spirit forward, ready to serve space is growing really quickly. We have a unique story to tell in that space. We use real ingredients. We're from Canada, so it's a great story. So we're able to carve out a niche in that space and expand quite a bit in there. And then our capacity is there. We're ready to go. So now this capital raise is just about getting the funds to increase our sales and marketing efforts, and we're ready to rock.
That's great. Really appreciate you joining us today and sharing more about your journey and the business and the growth that you guys are experiencing. And for those who are listening who do want to learn more, you can do so at frontfundr.com/the Fort Distillery. As we talked about, there's some great perks available on the campaign page, so definitely recommend everyone check it out. There's a nice video at the top of the page as well. And Nathan, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For anyone new to the podcast, FrontFundr is Canada's leading equity crowdfunding platform, enabling all Canadians to invest in the most exciting startups and growth stage companies, something that was previously only available to the 1%. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter so you can have your questions answered in an upcoming episode. This podcast episode is for informational purposes only and should not constitute financial advice. Investors should conduct their own due diligence on any investment they may be considering on FrontFundr. For details of any offering listed on FrontFundr, refer to the offering document on their campaign page at www.frontfundr.com.